Alors bonsoir, bonsoir
Good
tout le monde.
evening, everyone.
La ville de Dieppe reconnaît que
The city of
la terre
Dieppe
sur laquelle
recognizes that the land on which it operates
fait partie du territoire
is part of the unceded traditional ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq.
des traités de paix et
The
d'amitié
peace and friendship treaties
que les Mi'kmaq ont
that the
élaborés
Mi'kmaq jointly drew up
de façon conjointe et signés avec la
and
couronne
signed with the British
britannique
Crown
pendant le 18e
during the
siècle
18th century
à ce territoire.
apply to this territory.
Les traités n'abordaient pas
The
la
treaties
cession
did not deal with the
territoire
surrender
ou
of
ressources,
land or
mais
resources,
reconnaissaient en
but
fait le
in
titre
fact
de
recognized
Mi'kmaq
Mi'kmaq
et
title
établissaient
and
les
set out
règles
the
concernant
rules
ce qui devait être
for
la
what was to
relation
be an
durable
enduring relationship
entre les deux parties.
between both parties.
C'est donc avec beaucoup d'honneur et
So it is with great honor and respect
que nous sommes ici réunis ce
that we
soir
gather tonight
pour faire le
to
dévoilement
unveil
d'installation
the
permanente
permanent
du
installation
drapeau
of the Mi'kmaq
Mi'kmaq
flag
dans notre salle du
in
conseil.
our council chamber.
Nous sommes vraiment très fiers de
We're very proud
là aujourd'hui.
of being there today, of getting here today, rather.
D'abord,
So first,
nos trois invités
I would like to
spéciaux
invite our three special
bien
guests
vouloir s'avancer
to
à
come
l'avant.
forward.
So I would invite our three special guests to meet me here. So please help me welcome Chief Rebecca Knockwood of Fort Folly First Nation, Mr. Gordon Labillois, who is from Hill River Bar, excuse me, and Tracy Cloud from the MTI. And who else am I missing? Elder Marcia. Thank you for joining me in offering our guests tobacco for our gratitude. En remettant les offrandes à chaque personne en compagnie d'Alexandre,
giving offerings to each person in the company of Alexander,
you grace us with your presence and your words on this very special occasion. I would like now to invite Gordon Labillois to deliver opening remarks.
Our opening remarks are in a prayer. And a prayer usually in our culture, it's about a celebration. And the celebration is usually about giving thanks for something. So today, I want you to keep that in mind, that we're honored today to be here. We're honored to be here today with the dedication of our flag on the land that our people walked on, probably lived on, and our people still utilize to come here. We're here today. We come into town to do business quite often. So with that, I will start off with a prayer. And most recently, over the weekend, the first day of fall, our fall solstice took place in the Native communities, and it was an opportunity to give thanks for the gifts of summer, of gathering, of our people historically came out to the waters along the coast, and our winter homes were inland, where the moose and deer yards were. So it is a time that governance was done, weddings, activities, games were it's a time of relaxation enjoying the beauty of our province, I guess. Gizu, the creator of all life, we give thanks for this. We give thanks for this day, and we give thanks for this past season. And we ask for safety and health and positive relationships going into the new season. First and foremost, we have to give thanks for our mother, Mama Gail, our first mother, and give thanks for the sky world. The stars are our ancestors. The moon for the gravity that extends to keep us going around safely. And we give thanks for the sun, for taking away that darkness and generating that precious energy that allows our first mother to continue yielding her unconditional love to us. She does that through the plants, the animals, the fish, the winged ones that we feed off. We give thanks for the sacred elements, air, oxygen. Today we were in a ceremony in an announcement in St. John about the small nuclear reactor program, which is a new technology that's going to allow us to get off of fossil fuels within a short period of time. So that so we give thanks for our partners today that we celebrated with in St. John. We also give thanks for the partnership of Dieppe, for the collaboration that's taken place with MTI. We give thanks for the gift of assembly as we come together to sit with our treaty partners to forge a path of true reconciliation as we journey through life. And we humbly ask that you allow the spirit helpers and the ancestors to come and guide us through our talks with the city of Dieppe. For all my relations, Ms. Nogama. Thank you.
Merci. Thank you,
Thank you.
Gordon, for those kind words. Really appreciated by all. Nous sommes très heureux de vous accueillir à Dieppe.
We're delighted to welcome you to Dieppe this evening for this event of a great importance to our communities.
So just and yeah. Comme vous le savez tous,
now, as you know, September 30 marks the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The city of Dieppe has been marking this commemorative day since 2021, notably by suspending non-essential services and educating its employees about having trouble with that word. So by educating its employees about the history of Indigenous peoples. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is an opportunity to pay tribute to the children who were never able, to the children who were never able to return home, to the survivors of residential schools, and to their families and communities. Public commemoration of the tragic and painful history of residential schools and their lasting legacy is an essential part of the reconciliation process. Dieppe was keen to take a further step in this reconciliation process by initiating a dialogue with MTI, who graciously agreed to accompany us on this journey. Following those discussions, it was suggested that the Mi'kmaq flag be displayed permanently in our council chambers, as you can now see behind us. This symbolic gesture is an opportunity for us all to honor Mi'kmaq culture, the historic partnership and treaties established with the Mi'kmaq people, and the struggles that Mi'kmaq communities have endured. As we continue to foster and build meaningful relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, we are keen to highlight the important contributions of Indigenous peoples and to discover their rich cultural diversity. Inclusion. Inclusion is at the heart of our city's values. Our municipality encourages coming together, sharing, and cooperation among all groups, and strives to be a welcoming, inclusive, and safe place for its residents and all its visitors. Discrimination based on ethnic origin, language, culture, religion, sexual orientation and identity, gender, or any other factor has no place here. Let's be kind to one another and show openness and hospitality. So once again, thank you all for the great honor, a very great honor of being here this evening.
I would like now to ask Chief Knockwood to please say a few words and come up.
He's tall, I'm short. It's okay, I think you guys can still hear me. So, Kwe, Ndeluizi, Sagama, Rebecca Knockwood, Delwi Umlum Cook First Nation. Hello, my name is Chief Rebecca Knockwood, and I am from Umlum Cook First Nation, also known as Fort Folly First Nation. And I am co-chair of Mi'kmaq de Bludahan, MTI, along with Chief George Guinness. First off, I didn't know I had to make a little speech until Tracy messaged me. So I just want to say thank you so much, Walalio and merci beaucoup, for having us here and acknowledging that you guys are on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Mi'kmaq. And to have the flag posted here permanently means a lot. A year ago today, I presented the mayor with Every Child Matters flag right on today. It's like perfect timing for this. I really do appreciate that. And what I want to say is there is 94 calls to action but as we like to say, it's reconciliation, because we want to see these things done. And having the flag posted here is for us, it's a big step. For you, it might just be a little step, but for us, it's a big step, and it means a lot to us. So I really want to say thank you so much for acknowledging us. We're still here, we're persistent, we're not going anywhere, and just love the orange shirts. Speaking of the orange shirt, I have this orange shirt. It was designed by the youth in Fort Folly. We had a contest, and they decided to design this, and it's a dream catcher. And their thought behind this was, because of the children, the first 250 kids that were found, their thought behind this was the dream catcher. It catches the bad dreams and lets the new ones pass through. So their thought was, for all the people that don't believe and are saying nasty things about First Nations, that it would get caught in the dream catcher and all the nice words would come back out through. So I'm really proud of this shirt. So on behalf of Mi'kmaq de Blutahan and Fort Folly First Nation, I would like to present you with these sacred medicines. If you would like to display them or put them out or whatever, there's even sweetgrass. And one other thing before I go, Fort Folly First Nation has been trying to bring back the Inner Bay of Fundy salmon that has been extinct from the Petty Kodiak. We're finally getting returns. We're doing a salmon release in Elgin, October the 11th and 13th, to release salmon back into the Petty Kodiak River. So if you would like, I can send you the invite, and you can come and release. They'll even let you release salmon. We're talking like fish this big. It's just awesome to see the returns coming back into the Petty Kodiak. So anyways, thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you very much for being here.
Not a
Really
problem.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words. Merci beaucoup. And I would now welcome Tracy Cloud to who will say a few words on behalf of the MTL group. Yeah, we might.
And I didn't know I was speaking today either, so very quickly in the parking lot, I put together a few words on my phone, so I'm not texting as I'm speaking, I promise. Gwe, Imsetwin, Nindaluizi Tracy Aluk, Delewi Medabanagia Mi'kmaq Nation, and I am the Director of Trilateral Negotiations for Mi'kmaq de Blutahan. And on behalf of Mi'kmaq de Blutahan, it's 9 Mi'kmaq chiefs, it's 9 member communities. We would like to sincerely thank the City of Dieppe, the Honorable Mayor, and the councillors for this historic event today. In the spirit of peace, friendship, and reconciliation, today we acknowledge the long history between the Mi'kmaq and the Acadians on this land, which we call Mi'kma'ki. We've shared these lands for centuries, and today we are here to witness the historic raising of the Mi'kmaq Grand Council flag. For us, this symbolizes and reinforces the long-standing relationship that we have. We definitely look forward to continuing walking together in the spirit of peace and friendship, and mark this occasion certainly as one of many very important collaborations moving forward together on this journey and this path we call life. So merci, Walalio, and we look forward to future discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we would like to take some official pictures of all this. So we would ask you to please come forward so we can do that, and I'll let the staff do the rest of it. So before I break something.
be accepted and be acknowledged as First Nations people. Especially for myself, I am a third-generation residential school survivor. My grandfather was taken when he was just 5 or 6, and he stayed all the way through. From there, the horrors of residential school, he got used of the life from a residential school. So he went to the Air Force. And then from there, he completed that, and then he began his family. So being raised in residential school, you're not shown love, right? So that's been handed down. It was handed down to his children, and then it was handed down to me. So growing up, my parents did not give me my language. They did not give me my culture. They did not give me an identity. They said my culture, my language, and my identity was useless in order to be successful. And then when I was in my 20s, I still didn't know my language. I still didn't know my culture or identity. And it took an elder from my community who made the language survive. And she got mad at me in the language. I didn't understand a stitch of it, but the tone, you know she was upset. And then from then on, I said, I'm going to learn. I took that upon myself because I didn't want to be in front of my elders that went through so much for me to say, I don't know what you're saying. But I'm First Nation, so I took it upon myself. So it's nice to see everyone wearing an orange shirt. It's beautiful. It's a wave across the country, right? I'm wearing my orange shirt, and it's a pretty orange shirt because the little girl who started the orange shirt campaign, her pretty orange shirt was taken from her. So I'm going to wear my orange shirt, my pretty orange shirt. I want to thank everyone again. Umsut walaliok. Walali ektan bisqua ektit. Innuegri na me still ula. Me still me emuldi. Walaliok umsut no kuma.
Thank you so much.
There. That was the spirit. Show your own.
Again, thank you very much for coming here. And je suis convaincu, I'm sure that our relationship will continue forever. So I wish.
Council know that he married one of my members?
Yeah, exactly.
You rated your
Yeah, so that's quite some time ago. And I can, exactly. So here, you know, full disclosure, my wife Betty and the whole family, my children, my grandchildren are all members of Port Folly. So for full disclosure. But I know that, like you've said, the new generations are really engaged, getting engaged. C'est un engagement que les jeunes doivent faire.
This is an engagement that youth have to do.
Thank you for being here with us today. Merci beaucoup.
Pour notre mot d'ouverture.
For the opening word,
Pour notre mot d'ouverture maintenant, chers
the
collègues.
opening word. Now, dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Merci.
We have quorum. Yes, Your Worship. Any conflicts of interest? Nothing to report back. Let's move on. Move on to the adoption of the agenda, moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Lantagne. On the question. No questions? All those in favor will say aye. Against, nay. Carried. Let's move on quite quickly now to presentations, inquiries, and petitions. We always begin this item with 7.1, inquiries by council members to the Kodiak Regional RCMP. And tonight, we once again welcome Inspector Chantal Farah. We welcome here with us. Let me turn on your mic. Good evening and welcome. Thank you, Your Worship. And good evening, councillors. To begin my report, I want to tell you about the community policing officers in the last few weeks. Am I getting feedback? Testing, that's good. Okay. In the past few weeks, our officers of the community policing services have been working in schools with school leadership to talk about safe plan and also to talk about activities with young people. We hope to complete all our exercises in 39 schools of Moncton, Dieppe, and Riverview by the end of the month of September. This is our goal. Once again, these exercises are an excellent means for students and for staff to get used to security and safety procedures, specifically for those who are new in the schools of the region. Concerning our efforts to apply traffic laws in answering to the complaints you received here, we have given a little more attention to Pascal and Charlesville roads and Oliver Street in Dieppe. I can tell you that we are there from time to time, but I really want to remind drivers that it should take the police to remind you to be responsible behind the wheel. It's a collective effort from all drivers, and you have to stop 100% and not a rolling stop. avoid distracted driving and also respect the speed limit signs. Your Worship, if you have any other complaints of this kind, please send them on to me. I'm more than happy to target some areas, and we are constantly patrolling the area. Our officers who are working in crime reduction continue their efforts for open-air drug consumption in the city center of Moncton. Over the course of this month, we stopped 14 individuals who had arrest warrants out for them, 3 who were using drugs, and we found 2 stolen vehicles just by using our policing staff. They do good work, and we don't often see these officers because they're not often in uniform and when they're undertaking these kinds of operations. With regard to patrols, I want to remind you that September 14th, patrol officers were called about 2 young people who were on the bridge between Riverview and Moncton. Perhaps you were there in the traffic. What happened was there were 2 young people in distress, psychological distress, and they were at risk of falling in the Petit Kodiak River. Many officers from the Kodiak RCMP and also the crisis negotiating team, as well as fire services, were there. After many hours of negotiating back and forth, we were able to save the 2 young people and bring them to safety with the key help of firefighters. These 2 young people were brought to care, and we hope that they're doing better now. A sincere thank you to all motorists who were patient, and even when they weren't patient, they understood because we were detouring all traffic to the other bridge during that time, and that lasted several hours. As a reminder, the community message is that our region is noticing an increase in thefts from vehicles. In the last couple of weeks, there have been many reports that thieves were breaking windows to get into these vehicles, and they were stealing things from inside the cars. So our crime information and crime prevention units are looking at these cases in order to be able to target the group or groups that are responsible for these activities. What I can tell you is that the thefts seem to be happening in the early morning hours. The challenge is they're only noticed, of course, when people go to their cars to go to work or to run errands. So they don't hear the glass being broken, and so we are not being alerted at the time. So first of all, if you have cameras from your residence, if you can check if you hear that there are any problems in your neighborhood, if you see people or vehicles who do not belong to your neighbors or are not your neighbors, please let us know and try and we think that these thieves are using cars with stolen plates, and so they are stealing anything. They're taking backpacks with gym bags and clothes, change, electronic gear, tools. So my recommendation is please don't leave anything in your cars. Don't tempt anyone, and really be aware and let us, if there's anything special and it's not someone that you know and you hear something that might be breaking glass, please let us know about it immediately and we will send officers out. That concludes my report for this evening. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions by members of council? Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to follow up on the YQM concert. You reported the last time that things went well. That's what we had heard. And I wanted to follow up. It's not directed toward you, but maybe you know where the question can be directed. When it comes to alcohol consumption and efforts that were undertaken to ensure that people under 19 didn't have access to alcoholic beverages or became intoxicated, and they went out into the streets afterwards. So I wonder if is there someone on the premises who was managing, but did you have any complaints about that after the concert? And if not, where could we refer these complaints? For major events like this one, the role of the police is security outside the event site. So private security manages inside the venue. I'm aware that those who apply the laws on alcohol consumption were in the venue, looking at what was happening. Very probably, this request would go to Department of Justice and Public Safety in order to get facts and information about what happened inside the venue. And follow up with the staff of the city? Yes, that's right. Yes, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Genet. Thank you, Your Worship. I had a question. You know, and it's been several weeks now that school has been back in session. Are you looking at what's happening at schools when parents come in to get their children from school? At the Lou McNairon School, the business that was in front, previously, there was a parking lot that was open and parents would park there. Now that space is under construction. So I'm wondering if you can check that people are parking in the proper place to pick up their children. This is not a challenge from today. I can say that we have worked with these schools and with the school administration to make suggestions. And, you know, it's Gauvin Street and they're in the parking lot there. So I would say that we patrol the area and we're vigilant and we're making sure that parents are following the signs and the rules. And so I say we would have to continue to support this message. And it's a challenge for many of our school districts as parents. You know, you can't cut in, you have to wait. If you don't want to wait, then you have to get there earlier. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? I guess you've got life easy tonight then. Thank you for your presentation and thank you for the answers. And as always, you're always welcome to stay, but we understand if you have other things calling on your time. Next item 7.2, presentation on the language policy. So I would invite Catherine d'Entremont to come forward. And I don't know if Mr. Melançon, you have an introduction. Mr. Simard is going to do the introduction. Yes, thank you, Your Worship. In 2021, we began some work about the language policy. And in 2023, you know, two things explain the delay in what's been happening. On the one hand, the government announced that they were going to be reworking the Official Languages Act. And so we waited for a while and not much happened. And it delayed our presentation. We would have preferred to have the new elements of that act. And another thing is the restructuring here in the city, which meant that this policy had to go through the strategic committee. So we read it very closely from A to Z. Many questions were asked and answered. So today, Madame d'Entremont, who had the responsibility of rewriting this policy and has come to answer your questions and give you the main components of this. Thank you and good evening. Thank you. Thank you, Stéphane. Good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, councillors, one and all. I'm very pleased to be here with you this evening. There's the policy that you have in hand. It was drafted some time ago, as Stéphane just mentioned. I'll give you an overview of the process. The process was one of consultation, and it was a very interesting consultation process. Stéphane and I decided to consult key people, so members of council. We had a consultation meeting with the members. We then consulted the directors of the various municipal services. Then we asked the directors to give us the name of one employee per branch, and I consulted those employees without the directors being present because we wanted to hear the concerns and the ideas without the bosses being in the room. So that was very interesting. It was here in this room. That happened 2 years ago now. And then we undertook a consultation with His Worship. And as Stéphane mentioned, after doing all of this, the provincial government announced that there would be a review of the Official Languages Act. So we said, okay, is this going to change the water on the beans, as we commonly say? We didn't have to worry. Nothing has changed for the municipal world, and barely changed anything else in any other world either. But all of this to say that the Official Languages Act and the requirements under this act, which affect you as a city, have not changed in any way. So the linguistic regime under the act and the regulations connected to the act, which tells you what your obligations are the same obligations as when the act began to be applied in the municipal sector for municipalities in 2002.
23, ça fait déjà 21 ans qu'on a le même.
It's been 21 years now that we have the same linguistic structure under this act. So there's the context to bring us to this evening, because in the policy you have in front of you this evening, we're talking about your obligations as a city, that you have to do this, that, and is so A to O. So this is a list of requirements, and the wording is unchanged from the act and the regulations with regard to your obligations. So the language policy we're giving to you tonight has 4 sections. I'm not going to through the 15 pages with you, paragraph by paragraph, but I simply want to say there are 4 parts. So there is the preamble, and in this preamble, you have various paragraphs that talk about the context, the language context of the city, and you have these same ideas in the official documents like your strategic plan and others. So you have here all the ideas in this preamble. The second part is called Language of Service, and this is on page 3. And here you will find all the requirements that the city must is obliged to undertake. It begins with A, and you continue to page 5. So these are from A to O, the obligations that you have as a municipality. Other than your obligations and requirements under the law, there are other sections that have been added to the policy. Another one is publications, city publications, publication from external sponsors, municipal signage, government agencies. We had interesting discussions on page 6, government agencies. I just want to draw your attention to this paragraph. It's paragraph 4 on page 6. Under government agencies, all correspondence, including letters, email, funding requests, and other communications addressed to ministers, deputy ministers, and provincial and federal officials shall be written in French. The reason for this is that the provincial government, as well as the federal government, have the obligation to serve you in the language of your choice. So as a municipality, a francophone municipality, with obligations toward your citizens and serving citizens in both languages, but you, as a francophone organization, when you deal with provincial authorities, you do it in the language of your choice, which is French. So that's what this paragraph means. Do not worry in the least about whether the person you are addressing your letter to can communicate in French. That's not to be a concern of yours. They'll worry about that. So if you send a letter to someone in the provincial government or the federal government, it is the obligation of those levels of government to get organized and offer you the service in the language of your choice. So you become the client in that case. Discussions were held about that, but I simply wanted to mention this so that this is clear to you that the choice is yours to be served in the language of your choice. In the case of Dieppe, which is the French language. There's another part, press conferences. You'll see in this policy that we use the words as much as possible and from time to time. And when we undertook the consultation, the employees said to us, well, for example, for software, it could be you are using a software that's not available in French. It's possible. I'm not an expert in software, but there are some products that you have to use. We're talking a little bit about working language or language of work. It's possible that you may need tools or software that are not available in French, but the policy encourages you to make the effort to go and check to see if this exists in French. So if you buy a product for your employees, do the research beforehand to make sure to see if this is available in French. Unless the French product is of lesser quality, it is preferable to buy it in French or in both languages in the very first case. So there's another paragraph on contracts and purchasing. Contracts and purchasing, events and performances. You'll see in this policy that French is put in the forefront, but when we're talking about events, then advertising is done in both languages, and signage, the French is first, and secondly in English. When we're talking about letters and policies, we suggest that the font be the same size or the French be on top or on the left. There's another paragraph on companies. You have programs in the city where you have incentives for your business people to do their signage in French. So that's noted. Also, when you're dealing with a third party offering your services, they act on your behalf, and so they offer the service in French first, or French and English. With regard to language of work, we say that during meetings, French shall be the language of written and spoken communication. For employees, the language of work is French, etc. Then French is language to be used in preparation and conduct of ceremonies and other activities organized by the city. His Worship will always say a few words in English. However, French is the main language used on those occasions. Written communications internally, once again, we're talking about language of work, so all communications are in French. On the bottom of page 9, I draw your attention to 3A. So all internal written communications are to be drafted in French as much as possible, as long as practice does not interfere with public safety, such as the communications with the fire department and English-speaking organizations. So when we undertook the consultation with your employees, we heard that there are some organizations, community organizations, with whom you have to deal, and they do not necessarily speak French. So that's the reason why we state that as long as possible, certainly we have to adjust to circumstances, but French, it comes first. When it comes to, now we're on page 10, administrative documents, all working documents shall be written and distributed in French. I mentioned software. Once again, we support the French version of these operating systems. With regard language proficiency requirements for competitions for filling positions, if you follow this policy, I can tell you that you're going to do this better than the province of New Brunswick. I can tell you this 100%, because the policy we're proposing to you here this evening requires you to determine the language skills necessary to perform their duties in French and English, if there are bilingual positions, and orally as well as written proficiency. And when you post a competition, you post the level required for French and English and written and oral. And if you do this, you're doing much, much, much better than the province is doing currently. And they've been having issues with this matter. The previous official languages commissioner did a lot of reporting on this situation. So put yourselves in the shoes of a candidate, and you certainly have many graduates who have come from immersion schooling who want to work for the city of Dieppe. And it's a generalization when I say this, but it's not a false generalization. But sometimes those who learn a language as a second language or a third language even don't realize that they are more highly skilled than they think they are. So they can read a competition notice and say, French language requirement skill at whatever level is 2 plus or 3. Let's say it requires a 2+ level. The person reads this and says, oh, I'm not good enough, so I'm not going to apply for this job. You don't know how many times that's happened. But when you post the level required, then most people, if they have worked or if they've done an immersion program and they've taken a French course, they know their level, especially if they have applied for more than one position. They know what level they're at. So sometimes you don't say what level they're looking for at the provincial level. And so people think they're looking for a high level. And in fact, that's not what is needed. You need a lesser level of proficiency. And so they're discouraged before they can even apply. So it's up to you to post. So the policy says that you need to determine the required level of spoken and written proficiency and post this for new job postings. And you'll be helping out any potential candidate because they will be able to see immediately if they have the proficiency required to apply for the job. So when you're looking for a job, you say, look, you need a BA in this field. Well, they know what they required. So you also will be posting the proficiency requirements. And see, in this language policy, we mention, because it could happen, I don't know if you've seen it, you have unilingual Francophone employees in Dieppe, or those who speak French but not English, but a second other language. And you have probably a lot of positions in Dieppe where the knowledge of English is perhaps not necessary. So by looking at what's necessary for each position, you will see what you need. And for all of this, it's in order to offer this service that you are required to offer in one language or another, or in both. So that's what is meant by language proficiency for job postings. And then on page 11, we're talking about training and resource materials. So any working tool, dictionaries, lexicons, software, any upgrading courses, not just language upgrading courses, but any upgrading courses for anything. And very often, I'm quite aware that often people want to take a course as an employee, and the course in French is available next week because we have a full class. And if you want to take the class in French, you have to wait for 6 months, a year, or maybe it's never going to be offered. So once again, I encourage you, not only as staff and elected representatives, but to go and see what's available in the market in French. And sometimes you might have to travel, you might have to go to another region in order to take the course in French. But if you are putting yourself out there as a French-speaking city and providing training and upgrading for your employees, is important that it be done in French for vocabulary purposes in all fields. So this is what we're proposing in the policy right now. The last part, which begins on page 12, is the responsibilities for the implementation. And so we've assigned to Marc Melançon the main task of implementing this policy, as it is for other policies, I would imagine. So it is the Chief Administrative Officer who is mainly responsible for this policy. They promote the policy, provides advice, establishes the implementation objectives. And so you can read all the responsibilities that the CAO has. And then after that, there are many responsibilities, as you can see, involved here. So on page 14, the next level is members for operating divisions. And so all those who are employed in Dieppe and who also have employees also have a responsibility under this policy. And so we say in this policy, during the annual assessment, it's up to Mark to make sure that it's being done, that all the directors, all the service directors review the language policy every year with each of their employees. And if there are any problems or challenges, then it's up to these directors to provide them to the CAO.
Il va s'occuper de faire quelque chose avec ça, peut-être suggérer que la politique soit modifiée ou
Perhaps suggest training sessions, amendments to the policy. And so that's how it's supposed to happen. We would need to know if there are any issues with the implementation. The focal point for coordinating all that is the CAO. So do you have any questions now? Any questions from councillors?
Wow. Pas souvent que ça arrive, ça.
All right, that doesn't happen often. Oh, I would have been surprised. Councillor Godbout. Well, first of all, thank you, Ms. D'Entremont, and thank you to the team for the excellent work that they put in here. It was a great document to read. It was easy to read. It'll be easy to interpret. So already that's not an easy thing to do. And also in terms of content, documenting past efforts and past practices that we've been doing for a long time within the municipality. This document now makes them more concrete. And I think there's been a certain amount of refinement and acceleration as well. I can see some parts that will require some resources, and I'm completely in favor of that. Now, based on our communication with you in the past, the question of the demographic weight, and I saw that you added something at the beginning of the policy to to clarify, to address that. You talked about objectives and whether they needed to be strengthened. So could you talk to me a little bit about what was behind that, what you were thinking in about putting that in, why you put that in the preamble? Where did the preamble come from? Well, I think that came from the group discussions. But the preamble, I have to say that it's your creation. It's from your documents. It's from your strategic plan, from your visions, your vision and your mission and your values, and that's where that comes from. So if you want to add something to the preamble and specify the target aims of the policy, I would invite you to ask your communications department and or public relations department to do that, to make sure that it says what you want it to say. So yeah, you can do the changes that you want to the preamble. It doesn't change what follows. The preamble, you know, it mentions a few objectives, but the rest, it wouldn't change the, you know, language of work, language of service, if you want to change the aims or the objectives. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. When you're talking about the population, you're talking about a Francophone majority of over 64%. And I thought we were higher than that, maybe 68 or 69% of the population. Well, I didn't write that part. So I would invite you to ask Mr. Simard, perhaps, in terms of where those data come from. Well, that's based on the most recent data. In the last 5 years, the percentage of Francophones has diminished by 5%. Language spoken at the home. Well, maybe we'd need to add something now to reinforce the policy, so that we can bring those, we can change that trend and push it upwards, maybe. All right, another question that I had. Well, maybe just a comment. You know, I worked with figures at the provincial level. Maintaining the demographic weight of the community is a concept. The number of Francophones can stay the same, but if we increase the number of residents who speak other languages, not just English, and it's not a bad thing, but you understand the math behind it. But right in this section, what you want it to do. Sometimes it's not, you know, it's not enough to maintain the weight or the number of the community. Maybe you want to increase the demographic weight of that community. That's a decision for you to make. It's a strategic decision. So maybe before we finalize this, no, I don't know what your plan is, but maybe it would be worth, you know, looking at the trends in the past few years, the last few censuses, to see what's happening, and if the trend continues, maybe that'll determine what you want to put as a detectors, or should it go here or in your strategic planning? That's another question. But I think the concept is that we want to make sure that the demographic weight of the Francophone community does not decrease. Do we want to maintain it or increase it, though? That's another debate. If you allow me to respond to that. Now, the language policy is a tool that describes how we work in-house and how we deal with the outside world. You know, what the tools and software that we're going to be using, so the language of those tools. Immigration is not something that we control at the municipal level. I mean, we can intervene, we can increase the number of employees from the immigrant population, but that's immigration is a provincial and federal matter. And the city also works a lot in terms of recreation and in terms of the language. So, you know, in all the work that the city does, day after day, so there's a lot of activities that the city does. But now I understand that we want to maintain the demographic weight of the community, but the language policy is just one of many tools that we can use. I agree, but I feel I should add that you know, when we in the latest census data, we saw that the Francophone representation had gone down quite a bit. And I had asked at that time if we should not create a, if we should create a committee to examine the situation and come up with options and activities that we should do, actions that we should take to maintain our demographic weight, the weight that we had before. I don't think anything was done with that, but I think that's something that we have to do to come back to. We have to return to the demographic weight that we had before. Now, I had another question here. Well, the staff has already undertaken work on the Francophonie in our community. We had and that committee met in the month of May, I believe. So we have a second meeting that's coming up in a few weeks to kind of summarize the activities that the actions that we've taken already. And then once we adopt this language policy, then we can establish objectives and targets, and that's another part of the work that will be done after we adopt this policy. So we're summarizing the situation. So yes, we may have lost a bit of ground with immigration and newcomers, but we're doing that work already, and we will have an action plan that'll be presented to council. Okay, well, I think this is something we should hear about more often, though. All right, another question. Page 5. It starts at 5 and ends at 6. So it says companies shall be encouraged to use only their logos with no accompanying text wherever possible. What does that mean? I think that's a question for your staff, because I think you have experience with that type of situation with one or two companies. It happened, it came out of a consultation, and I think there are examples there. I'm just checking to see what we had in terms of publicity before, publications before. This may have been something that we were doing before, and we've just maintained it. So just by memory, and I don't remember the name of the company, but it was the name of a company in your territory, and the name of the company was in English only. And I don't know if you had discussions about just having the logo. You know, that was 2 years ago, so I don't remember exactly the example. But well, I'll just, yes. So the current wording of the policy, or the wording of the policy, the wording in the current policy is similar. So Z22 provides for the display of signage in both languages, with French first and then English. But this is not a change compared to what we were doing before. Z22 does not obligate companies to put the name of the company in both languages. Oh, your question is about the name? Well, we use the name of the company. We encourage companies to use a French name. So I'll give you an example, McDonald's. Initially, they were thinking about using Park Place for their game structure, but we contacted them and we asked them to put a French name because that, you know, there are French names, French signs used in Quebec. So, and they did it. So it can be done, yes. Yeah, I think I had I took notes. I made notes elsewhere, but. For complaints, that there's a form that's available. Is that the case? That's a good question. I believe there are. Now, just let me check here. Could you refer me to the article that you're talking about? That'll go a little faster. It's under the responsibilities of the CAO. Oh, yes. I'm just going by memory here, but you know, sometimes this is about complaints from employees. There are no forms that were created for that, but there is you know, the yearly work appraisal, and that's the opportunity for employees to discuss those complaints. And if there are complaints, those will be passed on to the CAO. Okay, I have another question. Again, under the responsibilities of the CAO, we talk about the city's annual meeting. What can you talk about? What is that? Oh, well, there's an annual meeting of employees. Ah, okay. Maybe that should be specified. That's all for me. Thank you. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. These comments are really useful. You know, what I was expecting to hear is that there's a willingness on the part of employees to take into consideration the demographic weight and the issues related to that weight in the decisions. And when I look at the policy, this is a tool that council can give to employees, and I think we should move the objectives from the preamble to a different section so that the objectives become mandatory. So I think we should take the objectives out of the preamble and put them in the objectives of the policy. It's a priority. And I remember when we had the survey, the census, we were looking at the demographic data, and if we want to remain the biggest francophone city outside of Quebec, I think we have to put in place stronger measures. And we, you know, as a tribute to the people who did it before us, you know, we saw in this policy that there were things that were done in the past, but I think that we have to be, you know, we see with the Federal Act, the modernization of the Official Languages Act, that there are measures to bolster the demographic weight of francophones. I think we, you know, because we haven't had population gains in terms of the francophone community, the francophones are expecting us to do it. We have a role to play. Pardon, we have a role to play in it, and I think we've heard that it's possible to do that, to add it in our objectives or the purposes section rather than the preamble. Would you like to say something, Your Worship? All right, we'll add that. We'll add purpose C. So that, and I'm very happy to hear you say that, yes. I totally agree with you. So that we'll take measures, we'll prefer measures that promote the demographic weight of the francophone communication. All right, so does that mean we can't table the document? We're doing these changes kind of on the fly here, but yeah, I think that would be better. Maybe do this, present this at the next meeting. So we'll table that 10.1.1. We'll postpone that till a later meeting. I think following the latest survey, one thing that comes out, and I don't know what we can do to address this, but a lot of people often say that they are bilingual because it's an option given to them, instead of saying francophone. They say they call themselves bilingual. So like there's three categories, three choices. Yeah, at one point we didn't have a choice in the census, but in the last few census we can choose two mother tongues. So maybe that's where that comes from. Well, it's interesting. This is I was talking about this around in a discussion, and people were saying bilingualism is a skill, not an identity, and we have to remember that. It's a skill that we want to encourage and we absolutely want to promote, but it's not an identity. Well, unless you have an Anglophone parent and a Francophone parent. I understand, but I mean, it's a question of perspective. You can see it like that, yes. I'm just saying that, just for the sake of saying it. All right, so now, if we want to boost the demographic weight to 68%, that's going to take a lot of francophones. That'll be a major challenge. Councillor Thibodeau. Well, in the latest censuses, they didn't ask the mother tongue. They asked what languages were spoken at home and first official language. So that's what the percentage is based on. So, all right, well, we've got work to do. Which is good. All right, let's continue. Next item. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Ms. D'Entremont. Before we go continue, I almost forgot. It was a pleasure to work with you. Your Worship, Ms. D'Entremont, we'll probably be working together. We'll be contacting you in the coming days. And we have a work session with managers and staff soon, so I may have questions for you, and I may be asking for your help again. All right, thank you again. All right, that brings us to item 7.3, public hearing, condition amendment, zoning bylaw Z10-1, PID 706-24358-88, Sunset Street. Mr. Nassim Sid Otman. I hope I didn't, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, but all right. All right, well, welcome. Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. My name is Nassim Sid Otman. I'm a junior city planner. I've been here with you for 7 months. This is my first presentation before you, so I'm very happy to be here. And I hope this will be the first of many. So this presentation is being made as part of the public hearing regarding Horizon Place. And it deals with the modification of the resolution related to zoning bylaw Z10-1. So we will start with the timeline. Then I will be giving some context and a brief description of the proposed project, and then I will end with the proposed amendment. So in terms of the timeline, on August 14th, we began the amendment process. The public hearing date was set for tonight, September 25th. The PAC meeting is supposed to happen on October 18th, and then the decision by council will be taken at the regular meeting on November 14th. So this amendment deals with 88 Sunset Avenue and the property there. The PID number is 706-24358. The land is on land zoned AID. So in terms of history and the regulatory framework, there have been a number of procedures regarding this parcel of land. There was a first resolution. There was a rezoning of a number of lots, changing it to CCS, to CAR, to AID, and those zones were merged to create a single lot. And during that process, the rezoning was conditional to various terms and conditions. So limiting the number of dwelling units to 155, and then following an additional request for an amendment, there was a resolution that was adopted on July 21st, 2017, to allow 162 dwelling units. And then finally, this new request was to add one more residential unit, bringing the total to 163 units. So in concrete terms, so the requester, the applicant, wants to, and you'll see it in red on the slide, wants that space is currently used as an office space. So the applicant wants to convert that space into a new housing unit. So, and as part of that transformation, the work will be simply limited to reconfiguring that space. So the idea is to convert the office into a housing unit. So in terms of the plans that we received, the change will not affect the facade of the building or the windows. So in conclusion, the proposed amendment is to zoning bylaw Z10.1. So the following terms and conditions would be changed. So multi-family dwelling up to a maximum of 162 dwellings units would be replaced by multi-family dwelling up to a maximum of 163 dwelling units. Thank you for your attention, and I am now ready to take any questions you may have. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Jeannet. Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. It's great to hear you. So I'm wondering, the people who are in the building, were the people in the building informed, and did they provide any feedback on what has been presented? Yes, absolutely. So we sent notices and we received no comments following that notice. All right, thank you. Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. Now, if my memory serves me well, this unit has already been rezoned and they've already appeared before the PAC. It's there's a lot of accommodations that were granted to this structure. So why didn't they go to 163 at the time? Why did they allow this office? I'm not sure I can answer that question. Mr. Girard, please. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Godbout. Oh, corporate memory. This is a corporate memory that's... right, at the time, now, if you remember clearly, this was a major project, and the reasoning behind this zoning that was granted was this wasn't a this was a specific project. At the time, this was an individual who wanted to have his own office, his own professional office within the building. And because it was an integrated building, we had to allow it, and we had to determine the amount of housing units that would be allowed at the time. So as my colleague mentioned, we started with 155 dwelling units, and then the individual changed his plans. We upped the maximum number of dwelling units to 162, and it was approved by the council. And now we're at a point where the original owner has sold the unit to Killam Properties, or sold the building to Killam Properties, and they don't need an office on the main floor. And for us as urban planners, we don't really see the need to maintain that office on the main floor either. So that's why we're seeing that. That's why we consider that this amendment, that we can consider this amendment. Are there adapted units, and how many are there in that building? Are they fully occupied, or would that be an option? Could we build an adapted unit? Well, that's a good question. I'd have to consult my colleagues. In terms of accessible units, that's a requirement of the National Building Code. And at this point, I don't know the ratio of accessible units to, but that's something that we can give you. Well, I think it would be worth looking at, because when it seems to me that when we added that extra floor, we didn't require more accessible units. They were already having difficulty renting units, so unless it comes back, it'd be worth looking into. And last question. I know we haven't established all our policies or our capacity, but could we require that it be an affordable unit? Did we look at that possibility too?
It's certainly a possibility. We'd also have to look at making further amendments to the resolution. We don't see the need for it at this point to be considered as an affordable housing, because we have a policy for affordable housing where affordable housing is targeted by federal programs. So at this time, if we wanted to make it affordable housing, we'd have to do follow-up, because we don't necessarily have a specific definition of affordable housing. Like CMHC provides financing to determine what is affordable. So once again, to shorten my long story, we don't necessarily see the necessity to do that. Thank you. And it's just a thought that I was having, because we're not clear on methodologies, but I think these are questions that we're going to be having to ask in the future. Any further questions? Hearing none. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. That's a great first time. This brings us to questions by members of the public. Are there any questions by the members of our public here tonight? Please identify yourself. Thank you, Your Worship. Paul Video, Isabel Street resident. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, and staff. My question relates to the path which was on the original plan for development, which is underway between Central and another street. Another developer had put a proposal forward to the city, which had been accepted, and they proposed there would be a linking trail between the current path parallel to Tranquil Street to join the development when the development was going to happen. So I wanted to know if this linking pathway still exists in the current plan? And will we ever see the day that it's going to happen? So that's my question. Perhaps the answer can't be given tonight, but if it is, I'd appreciate it. And if not, I'll wait to get an answer to my question. Can anyone answer, or do we get back to you? I think we will get back to you about that question because we're in the construction phase on the site. So the path comes with further development, and so we'll come back to you, Mr. Beriveau, with what is the final plan and the construction period. Thank you very much and good evening. Thank you and good evening. For the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held September 11th, moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Gaudette. On the question, seeing no questions, all those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. Carried. 10.1.1, adoption of the language policy. I think we'll skip that. It might be good to move to table it to a date. I would suggest October 23rd at the latest. It will allow us to revise it and make sure that we have added what you've suggested. That's simply a suggestion. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godbout. For Madame Doucette, who is away, that the policy be tabled and brought back no later than October 23rd. Are there any further questions? If not, let's put it to the vote. All those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. The resolution is carried as presented to delay the passing of the language policy. This brings us to 10.2 finance, 10.2.1 financing cancellation, New-Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation. Mr. Melançon, in the framework of the project behind Mathieu Martin, we wanted to talk to the finance committee, like Mr. Thériault explained to you last Monday night. He was convinced that we would not have to get a loan because of the financial situation of the city. And so we created an opportunity to do long-term saving, rather do a long-term debenture and pay 17% interest. So we're recommending that the amount be taken from operational budgets of 2023 and this project be closed. So no financing, the project has been paid for and the community will be able to benefit from it. That's a recommendation of staff to authorize the Treasurer to inform the NB Municipal Finance Corporation to cancel the borrowing authority, and we will pay the amount. Councillor Genet will read the resolution that Council authorize the Treasurer to inform the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation to cancel the borrowing authority 21-0058 of the Municipality of Dieppe, received on September 30th, 2021, in the amount of $492,000 to be used for recreational and cultural services for a maximum period of 15 years. I so move. Moved by Councillor Janet, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. On the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. Resolution is carried as read. 10.2.2, the same situation again. Yes, to renew a debenture. So we've already talked about payment for the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation. And once again, we have a surplus because of unpaid salaries and with regard to arenas and infrastructure and construction permits. So it is recommended that we do not proceed to refinance the debentures, 1.632 million, and also for the water and wastewater disposal operating fund in the amount of $766,000. So it's proposed that we do this by direct payment and do not renew the debenture. To read this resolution, Councillor Lantang. Thank you, Your Worship. This is good news, so I'm very happy to read this resolution that Council authorize the Treasurer to inform the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation to cancel the refinancing of the following debentures. Debenture number AZ5-2008 in the amount of $1,632,000 belonging to the General Operating Fund, and debenture number AZ6-2008 in the amount of $766,000 belonging to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Fund. I so move, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Lantang, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question. All those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. Resolution is passed. 10.3. Nominations. From time to time, the municipality appoints citizens to committees representing the citizens of Dieppe, and so we believe that the Greater Moncton Wastewater Commission, Transaqua, has a position vacant because someone has gone to work for the municipality. So Mona Lisa Lavallée has been recommended to us. And so this motion is for approval for a mandate ending September 25th, 2027. Thank you. Someone to read the resolution. Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council appoint Mona Lisa Lavallée as a member of the Greater Moncton Wastewater Commission, Transaqua, for a term ending September 25th, 2027. I so move, Your Worship. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Godbout, seconded by Councillor Rideau. On the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Against, nay. The resolution is carried as read. Now, the Planning Advisory Committee. Once again, the same thing. We're presenting Carmel Alain Bourque for a term ending December 31st, 2025. The same thing has happened with Transaqua. They have agreed to assess the needs for the skills of people around the table. So when we are looking for someone, we're looking for people who have the skills for the organization. So we want to make sure they have all the professional skills and aptitudes that are required for this urban planning committee or planning advisory committee. So that's why we're putting forward the candidacy of Carmel Alain Bourque. Thank you. To read the resolution, Councillor Genet. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council appoint Carmel Alain Bourque on the Planning Advisory Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2025. I so move. Moved and seconded on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Carried as read. Operations. Purchase and installation. Dump truck snowplow accessories. 10.4.1. Yes. So that period of the year is getting closer, and so if we want to have snow clearing capacity, we have before you a recommendation for applied pressure incorporated at the cost of $96,000 plus HST to equip the dump truck with snowplow accessories and also installation. You have the accounts where we're sharing the cost of this. So general capital budget, general purchase, budget water. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council award the contract for purchase and installation of accessories for the Operations Department's dump truck snowplow to Applied Pressure Incorporated at the cost of $96,000 plus HST, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from the following accounts: 65% of the cost from account number 3-3-20-12-7901, General Capital Budget, General Equipment Purchase, -PW, and 20% of the cost from account number 4-3-90-12-7901, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Equipment Purchase, Water, and 15% of the cost from account number 4-3-95-12-7901, Water and Sewage Capital Budget, Equipment Purchase. I so move. Moved and seconded on the question. No questions. Also in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against nay. The resolution is passed as presented.
That brings us to the master plan for parks and green spaces. Mr. Melanson. So we're at the stage where we're having to review our master plan for a number of reasons. So we've had a plan that's been in place for 10 years. And we've had territory that's been annexed to the city with municipal reform. So trends may have changed and evolved. So the staff recommend Atelier Urbain for an amount of $68,007.50 plus HST. And if the staff deems it necessary, they also recommend an additional expense of $20,160 to execute options 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the proposal if required. So I've explained the information is in the annex. So we recommend going with this and going with giving ourselves the option of going with options 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's our recommendation to go with the resolution for this year. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council accept Atelier Urbain's proposal dated September 1st, 2023 for the implementation of a new master plan for parks and green spaces at the cost of $68,007.50 plus HST. That Council authorize the option of an additional expense in the amount of $20,160 plus HST to Atelier Urbain for this project in order to execute options 3, 4, 5, and 6 of said proposal if required, and that Council authorize that these expenditures be defrayed from account number 1-2-70-84-2585, General Operating Budget, Consultation, Engineering Services. I so move. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Jeannet on the question. Councillor Godbout. I just want to clarify one of the points here. So we're saying that we want to was the recreational plan finalized? It was before the election? What was the plan that was presented in its draft form? Was it recreation? Oh, I think it was the infrastructure. Mr. Richard? Mr. Richard? Yes, it was a master plan for recreation. Okay, no, all right, so I didn't make that up. So normally, we don't adopt plans, we present them. So we don't have to officially adopt them unless I'm wrong, but so we table them but you didn't come back with a new plan, a new modified plan. And the reason I'm asking this is because, you know, we're looking to do a plan for parks and green spaces, but I remember when you presented the recreational plans and that we had a lot of feedback on it, but in my memory, I don't remember seeing it again. So if we approve this, is there a link between the two? There's like a bit of information missing. We'll be coming back to you with the action plan, with with all the changes. We're analyzing all that. So, but it's our intention to come back to you with the action plan, how we'll be implementing your recommendations, and if there are changes to be made to certain components of the plan. But yeah, we're referring to the recreation plan. I think it works, but it wasn't clear. Sometimes we're putting the cart before the horses, and I'm just not sure what we're doing here. Great, thank you. No one else? All right, so for the resolutions, so the resolution is carried as presented. For the master plan and parks and green spaces. All right, municipal bylaws. There's nothing on the table. Notices of motion, nothing on the table. Inquiries and announcement by members of council. And exceptionally, this evening, we are going to start with our person who's outside the building. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Can you hear me? Yes? Go ahead. I had 3 little things that I wanted to mention tonight. First, no, I saw this on social media, but I'm going to say it anyways. I would like to congratulate. Oh, you froze for a couple seconds there. I know I'm going to freeze, but all right, so I just congratulate the Center for the Arts for their nomination for Music NB Award for Stage of the Year. Second, that I wanted to draw attention to is an activity that we did last week as part of Municipalities Week. We hosted newcomers, young newcomers. This was organized by CAFI. So, Your Worship was had to do the emceeing on the fly, but it went great. Marc Lantin was there. It was really a good exchange that we had, and I can guarantee you that Dieppe is in good hands when it comes to the next generation. So thank you to the CAFI for organizing that activity. Last thing, and this is in relation to what happened, the demonstration that took place last week across the country, but also very close to here. And I feel like I have to respond to it. It's important to say that diversity and inclusion in our community, and more specifically, community support for the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. It's important to say that we are diverse and we are inclusive. And not just once a year, like in the month of June, we have to realize that we are always inclusive. So diversity and inclusion are the foundation of a healthy, progressive society, and plays a crucial role in the reinforcement of mutual respect and empathy. So, and why is it important for our community to support that community, the 2S LGBTQIA+ community more than ever? Well, first of all, to promote equality of rights, to increase comprehension, to improve mental health, and the people in this community so supporting that community is vital. in the improvement of their well-being and their mental health. And by providing them with support, we have to do that by providing support, and we have to also reinforce community solidarity and support that L2 SLGBTQIA+ community. We have to show that we care about the well-being of all members of our society, and that we want to work together for a better and more equitable and fair society. So our society is constantly evolving, and supporting this community is an integral part of that, those efforts. So by fighting for inclusion, we are working to build a better world for future generations. And supporting diversity and inclusion is an ethical and a moral obligation as well. It will help us to work to build a more loving and inclusive society where everyone can live fully without fear of prejudice. And so I wanted to say that message, and I wanted to reassure our citizens that we support them and that we are behind them. And we support them in their fight for rights and equality. And on that, have a good week. So just for information purposes for everyone, the city of Dieppe came out clearly on that subject. And we spread that message of support on all our social media outlets. So I'm convinced that people in Dieppe are very open-minded. And it was clear from the reaction that we got from certain members of the public and members of the council as well. So thank you for drawing attention to that once again. All right, now let's go to Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to do a bit of follow-up. I talked about patching on near the water tower and Melançon. There were issues with holes in the road, and it hadn't been fixed. The patching hadn't been done. So has there been any follow-up on that? Or will something be done before the winter? Well, we are currently looking at the file, and we'll be coming back to you with more concrete actions. We're looking at things right now, and we'll be coming to you with recommendations. All right, that's all for me then. Oh, normally when he says that, there's something good coming, so we have to be patient. Councillor Jeannet. Thank you, Your Worship. Well, in the same vein as Conseillère Turgeon-Roy, my heart was very heavy, and it still feels very heavy when I think of the events that took place on September 20th. You know, it's a reminder that you can't let your guard down when it comes to defending the most vulnerable and minority groups, people that are in need. Times are difficult for them and for the entire community, and hate and fear are at our doors. So I would like to express my support. I want to say that I'm listening to the LGBTQIA+ community. You can call me anytime, and I'll sit down and talk with you. So on a more positive note, I'm very happy to see what happened today. We were able to install the Mi'kmaq flag permanently and meet with people from that community. It was a beautiful evening, and thank you for everything that you've done, everything that you did. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Me too. I'm proud of Councillor José Roy for bringing that subject back. I think it's a current topic, and it's important to properly understand the situation of people and inclusion. Not long ago, you know, we started receiving immigrants, and we had to integrate those people into our community, and communicate with them and to create a true family. So I am 100% behind this situation. And there are going to be other things that'll happen in the future. Dieppe is a growing city, and we will have other similar situations. So let's move forward. We are an inclusive city. All right, thank you, Your Worship, and that's all I had for you tonight. All right, thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. I don't have a lot to. I agree with what Councillor Turgeon-Roy said, but and I won't repeat everything that's been said. I agree with the approach that was taken, and I hope that we act more to protect children than parents. Parents have rights, but children do too as well. Thank you.
Councillor Godbout, I have a couple of questions. I want to come back to the question I asked the RCMP earlier. Perhaps other staff members can help me or maybe do some follow-up. So when the YQM concert, how the alcohol services were managed so that no alcohol was provided to minors at the venue? And are we going to do a follow-up with Public Safety and Department of Justice to see how things went? Yes, we'll be checking that and get back to you. Secondly, given the storm and the big rains that we had, I'm just worried about the retaining ponds. Had the city had any issues with that? Mr. Cormier, have you any data? We sometimes like to put you on the spot from time to time. Well, I haven't anything to add. I didn't hear anything. Must be good news. Is this something that we supervise? Do we look at the retaining ponds during big storms? Do we do any follow-up on them? The first answer is that it's Public Works. If they have any difficulties with their retaining ponds, I can't see if he's... are we doing anything active by way of surveillance? Or only reacting to complaints? For engineering, this is the way it would go. Good evening. I'm going to attempt. I'm not sure if I had to get up or not. Mr. Bourque. Well, in fact, we have staff during these big storms who are touring, and we look at critical points on a regular basis. In fact, we did not have any major problems, so it was a good storm, if you will, where the retention ponds had any problems. The biggest problem we had were some 20 trees on the paths. That's why we've asked people to stay away from the paths, the walking trails, for a certain period of time. But that's what happened for us. And retention ponds, you're that too? Yes. Thank you for the initiative for building bus stands. I see people who appreciate the fact that they have these places, benches. This study on safety and Police Moncton Riverview Dieppe, which had been requested by the city of Dieppe. There will be a public presentation on October 5th at City Hall in Moncton on the 6th floor. This is open to the public. This is where we'll be outside the presentation, and the experts will be there. So once again, it's October 5th at the 6th floor at 9 o'clock in the morning at Moncton City Hall. I wanted to congratulate Dieppe on the work that it did tonight with bringing people together, the first meeting. You know, we have seen some of this, and the people who were here tonight, we were able to see that these efforts have now borne fruit and are well appreciated by the Aboriginal community. Also, I join with Councillor Turgeon-Roy on the inclusion of all communities. We have to talk about it and dialogue it, because things have evolved. There was a time when we didn't want to talk about suicide because we thought that it would give people the idea of committing suicide. And so you know, the opposite happen, especially in some communities. And we have to do this analogy. We have to talk about it. And it's through dialogue and education that we can understand. So thank you for your comments. That's it, Your Worship. Thank you. You know, I was out and I can tell you that the retention ponds were in great condition. Mr. Book, maybe you could add that to your report. Councillor Lantang, thank you, Your Worship. Nothing from me tonight, but I just want to say that I support what Councillor Turgeon-Roy has said, and we have to be an inclusive community and respectful and live in harmony, as we have as always. As a mayor and member of the council, I'm very pleased to hear the words I've heard spoken here tonight. Some of us were at an annual meeting of the Association of Cities of New Brunswick. We were in Fredericton over the weekend, and it was the topic of many discussions in the hallways, talking about the requirement of being supportive and inclusive. And so it goes without saying that the city of Dieppe is on the right side of this argument. Having said this, good evening to you all, and thank you for your attention, and thank you to our friends from Fort Folly who came to celebrate with us this evening and talk about this coming together, which is taking place between our communities, the Mi'kmaq communities of region. Thank you and good evening to all.